All right, hello, hello. My name is Jack Anderson, and I am here with Sebastian Hersko, and we are
Well,
here to bring you our UFC 246 show, and of course, talking about the return of the Notorious One, Mystic Mac, the King, Conor McGregor. So the man, the myth, the legend is returning this weekend, and yeah, it's going to be very exciting. I kind of wish the card was a little bit better. Kind of talking about this a little bit ago. But yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't boost out this card, but I think the return of Connor himself should probably, make this one of the most watched cards this year, I would think.
yeah, I mean, like you pointed out, the card is it's pretty dreadful. If we go back to, was it UFC 229 with him and Khabib? You had Ferguson on there, you had Derek Lewis, uh, you had a couple good fights. Here it's like, Holly Holmes she's the co-main event.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure she lost her last fight.
Yeah, she did.
She's nearing 40 years old. I was actually pointing this out to you too. I'm pretty sure everyone in the main card has lost their previous fight except for like two fighters. So we'll just
Yeah,
leave it at that,
that's a good point. Like Pettis has lost his last one, and I think Alexei Oleinik lost his last one. Yeah, a lot of the fighters there on the main card are
Yeah,
coming off.
even the main event, like they both lost their last fight too. So it's good that Connor's in the main event. I'm happy to see him back, and we'll probably focus mostly on him, and we'll make our predictions after.
Mhm. Yeah, so his return will mean a lot for the UFC and I think a lot for the start of this decade and of course going into the potential Khabib rematch if that can happen. Of course, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the lightweight champion, is taking on Tony Ferguson in April. So
Yep.
the winner of that fight should see a lot of attention, a lot of attention. So McGregor's return, I think, could be another 2016 for the UFC and bring the sport of MMA, I think, back into the mainstream. So what do you think about that?
I'm hoping we see the 2016 version. I know he talked about it yesterday with Ariel Helwani. I don't know if you watched that interview,
Yep.
but they were talking about they were talking about like, oh, is this the 2016 you? But no, I believe Connor when he says this is like a new version of himself. Uh, I know back in 2015, 2016, he fought like what, five times in 11 months or something like that,
Mhm.
three different weight divisions. So he wants to be active this year. I hope that's the case, and I'm pretty confident he'll put on a good showing this Saturday. But we'll save the official prediction for after.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm hoping things go in according to plan for him this year. I really do.
Yeah, I think this weekend against Cowboy is definitely a good matchup too. So it's not like he has to jump right back into say like a Khabib situation when he was off for 2 years. He wasn't in the greatest of shape. He wasn't in the best mindset. So I think this time around with a little bit more time off, and I would say an opponent that isn't quite at the level that he was fighting at previously, I think that he should be able to kind of establish himself back into the swing of things at the lightweight or welterweight division, whichever he decides to pursue. I know he's been obviously talking a lot about that Khabib rematch, but potentially George Masvidal at
Yeah.
welterweight. I mean, even going back to boxing for a Mayweather rematch. I thought one funny one
Yeah.
clip in that Ariel interview was that he was like, "Oh, so you think you'd be able to get back into boxing, and you might need a couple fights to get up
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
fight Floyd?" And he was just like, "Well, no."
Yeah. I
he,
don't
he
believe
knows
so.
he knows his impact, and he knows the kind of value he brings to whether it's boxing or mixed martial arts. The guy is just a star, and he's at the center of every news story. Anytime something little comes out about him, everybody wants to watch this guy, and it's gonna be an excellent return, I think.
Yeah, and we'll go back to the interview as well. Like I pointed out to you yesterday, he thinks he'll be a billionaire by 35, but a big part of that is he has to stay active. If he's active, whiskey sales go up, sponsorships go up, everything. So, it's important for him to be active and, stay in the sport that people know him for. But like, even if I was him, I wouldn't turn down a Mayweather 2 rematch, you know. So I don't blame him at all.
Hmm. And after hearing on the interview, once again, we're alluding to he made $50 million from the
Yeah.
fight. He's projected to make 80 million from Cerrone. You know, with Mayweather, he made 100 million. So in the UFC, he's making the same amount of money.
Do you
So I
find that
think the opportunities are there for him, and it's only going to get higher and higher. And a Khabib rematch, I think, will just like set that record book. And I got to wonder how much are his opponents making in those kinds of fights. Like I never realized the scope of like why so many people are out there, you know, challenging him over and over and over again, regardless of weight class or wherever they may be at the rankings at the time. Everybody wants that money fight because there's nothing even close to that right now in the UFC.
do you buy that he's making 80 million this weekend?
I found it very hard to believe when I first heard that. And like, you know, I was even talking to you about it. At first I was like, there's no way. But then I kind of did the math out. And so for the Khabib fight, there was 2.4 million pay-per-view buys. I
Yeah.
think roughly $60 per pay-per-view. It might
Yeah,
be
give or
higher.
take. Give or
Um,
take.
yeah, so that's roughly 150 million ish that the UFC made from that pay-per-view. So if he made 50 million from that, you know, he got a third of the pay-per-view points. That's not out of the question. I don't think that McGregor's like value and his popularity like would kind of say differently to how much he made there. So I
But
don't
now,
believe that they paid him that much.
the thing is though, is like now he's making 80, and do you think they're gonna reach 2.4 million or whatever it was, 2.2, 2.4 million buys?
See, that's the thing. Yeah, the last card, UFC 229, was pretty stacked. Like there were some good cards or good fights on that card, and this one it doesn't have that same appeal. But I think any McGregor card is just soared above the pay-per-view buys of any other card in that given year. So maybe 2.4 could be a bit of a stretch, but I'd say 2 million is definitely within reach.
Yeah, yeah, I agree too. I'd say like in the high like millions or like maybe 2 million, like you said. I'd say like that's definitely doable, but I don't believe it'll be better than 229.
Hmm.
Well, like good for him. If he's making 80 million for a comeback fight, like good for him. Good for him.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
crazy money. Crazy money.
yeah, yeah,
And that's not even considering like endorsements and what he's making from proper whiskey or proper 12 whiskey.
yeah.
You know, that's the man is just a businessman at this point, and um, you know that whole billionaire by 35 thing. I totally believe that, man.
And good for Cerrone too. He never got the belt, but if he's getting a nice payday, then I'm sure that means a lot to him as well. So good
Yeah,
for
maybe
him.
that could mean like kind of going to his retirement. I know it's hard to say that with Cowboy Cerrone because he's such a wild guy. He
Yeah, never
wants to
know.
and compete and he wants to be at his top physical performance at all times. And
Mhm.
I feel like that kind of thing is hard to get out of that habit once you're into it. Like you see with like Uriah Faber this year.
Yeah,
He was always in shape. He was always doing the coaching. He was always keeping at that top level. And, he always wanted to come back, but, the guy retired, in 2016 and, came back 3 years later. I feel like we could see something like that for Cowboy too.
yeah,
Maybe he gets his money and, in all likelihood, maybe a loss too with McGregor. So, maybe this could be kind of his parting gift.
yeah. I agree. He deserves it definitely. He deserves a nice payday for everything he's done.
Absolutely.
Uh, but from a contender standpoint, unless something crazy happens this week, I don't think he's gonna see that belt again for a while, or like at least have a chance at it. Uh,
Yeah. I think it kind of proved to everybody when he fought Tony Ferguson, when he fought Gaethje,
yeah,
two guys who were definitely at the peak of the lightweight division, and it kind of seems as if Donald is the stepping stone at this point
yeah,
for the guys who really want to launch themselves in that Khabib territory.
yeah.
So it was a little disappointing, but it kind of goes to show you he's not afraid of any fight.
No.
Um, but again, yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to climb up those ranks again.
Hmm. Hmm. But yeah. I mean, as you guys can tell, we don't really care about the other 10 fights on this card. Like, This card's a disaster, but I don't know. Do you want to get into the prediction or?
Yeah, I say let's get right into it. We're at the 10-minute mark, so I think
Okay.
yeah, I think I wanna step up and say, I do think Conor is going to take this one. I think Cowboy's approach to this fight is a little bit unorthodox for him. I know he really likes to stand and bang with these guys and these elite strikers, but at this point, I don't know if his chin's going to hold up. He's coming off of two pretty tough losses where he took some real damage. So against a guy like Conor, it's not going to be much different. And the fact that he said he doesn't want to use his grappling, doesn't want to use his clinch game, he wants to stand
Yeah.
and he wants to put on a show. That's not a good thing because he's much more well-rounded than Conor. He's got all the tools to win. It's just a matter of if he wants to use them or not. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing that has been a problem with him for a lot of his career, is that he doesn't really want to use all of his tools all the time. And, it's cost him in big fights like with Dos Anjos,
Hmm.
Masvidal. So I think if that's the route that he wants to go, Conor's got this all day.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's been verbal about it. He's like, I want to give these guys a show. But like me and everyone else, even you, like we know like the advantage for him's on the ground for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And like for him, it's I wouldn't say it's simple, but like, get him to the ground and that's where he can win. If he's just gonna trade with Connor and uh if Connor says like he's as good as he is right now, then obviously the advantage is for Connor. He but that's the thing though. You have to wonder. He's been off for a year. There could be some rust still there, whether it's the timing or just getting rounds in the octagon. So I wouldn't say Cowboy is totally out of the fight if it is a striking match. But if we're going by what Cowboy's saying, I have to give it to Connor as well. There's no reason for me to believe that Connor or Cowboy's gonna shoot right away and this is gonna be done within a round if he submits him. It's hard for me to have any confidence in Cowboy in this one. So yeah, I'm gonna go to Connor.
Yeah, man, I think that's the way to go in this fight.
Yeah,
I think it's just a matter of whether Cowboy decides to be smart and
yeah,
to fight smart. But
mhm,
I think for I guess the allure of money that is there,
exactly.
to let's stand and bang with
Yeah,
the most popular fighter to ever grace the octagon. So so yeah, that's definitely the thought process there. But yeah, I think we're both on the same boat, and I think a lot of the UFC fans are kind of in the same boat. And I think Conor's gonna make his return. I think it's gonna be a great return, and I think somehow, some way, that Khabib fight is going to happen. I mean, barring anything that happens in the April fight against Ferguson, which he could definitely lose, no doubt.
mhm.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year for Conor.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like Connor said, depending how he wins, like if it's under a minute and he's he comes out of the octagon with no damage, maybe he could step in within a couple months if something does happen to Khabib or Tony. So that's also the interesting how Connor wins. If it's a long if it's like a DS2 fight, that could always happen too. It's gonna take a while for him to recover. But if it's like an Alvarez fight, then he could always step right back in, which he wants to do. He wants to be active. So that's also the other thing to watch out for. And then even for him, uh, hopefully he sticks by what he said, and he's like, if he wins Saturday, he's gonna like party Sunday, day off, and then Monday back in the gym.
Right.
So it'll also be interesting to see what happens, I guess, the week or two afterwards,
Hmm.
if he stays true to that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think he's definitely a mystery man. You know,
Yeah,
he doesn't always follow his word,
mhm,
and he's got this plan set out for him, but I feel like people are still skeptical about it. So yeah, until we see him step into the octagon and see how he reacts and see how that fight ends up going for him, which I think should be pretty positive. Um, yeah, hopefully he doesn't take a lot of damage and he can make 2020 his bitch.
fair enough. Great way to say it. Yeah, that's the right way to put it. Yeah.